I have a substantial report to give on the progress made in fulfilling this solemn covenant, and that the journey of transforming Kenya for the benefit of present and future generations is fully underway. Its positive effect have also begun to bear fruit across many sectors of our national endeavor, from the grassroots all the way to this capital of Nairobi. On the 13th September 2022, last year, when I took office, I undertook to ensure the urgent transformation of our economy and to stop and reverse the negative trends of runaway unemployment, yawning inequality, and widespread poverty, which have denied Kenyans their dignity and extinguished their dreams. The mass appeal of the bottom-up economic transformation agenda was due in large part to the fact that its development and articulation, as well as its content and implementation strategy, represented our national values in action. It was inclusive, democratic, committed to social justice and the protection of the marginalized. Our commitment to bring the national values and principles of governance to life in order to significantly enhance the well-being of every individual and promote the unity, stability, security, and development of our country began long before the last election and will endure well beyond our term. It has been my manifest intention to live up to all the commitments set out in the plan, and despite enormous challenges and tremendous difficulties, we have made encouraging progress in a positive direction. This has not only vindicated our philosophy of inclusive transformation in pursuit of shared prosperity, but it has also increased our confidence that we are on the right path and shall, in due course, deliver the transformation of our nation in full. It is important for us to point out that we began the implementation of our mandate to transform Kenya's economy from the bottom up under extreme difficult circumstances, not to excuse failure or to justify inability or omission to do the necessary work. Not at all. Rather, we do it to emphasize the significance of our progress, underscore the possibility of transformation under daunting conditions, and express well-founded confidence that when sufficient progress is made, we shall do much more and go much further in delivering the Kenya we want for our generations and also for posterity.
On the 9th of November 2023, at exactly 3 p.m., President William Ruto stood in front of a pregnant nation to give his maiden speech of the nation address. The country was looking up to the president to give hope and to explain what the government is doing to make the cost of living bearable to millions of Kenyans. The president spent about 1 hour and 5 minutes, and he read a document that was about 52 pages, containing 5,863 words. And he enumerated what he has managed to achieve in the last 14 months and the challenges we are going through and what the future portends for the country. Tonight, on the scorecard, we look back at the president's speech. We analyze it, we look at what was said and what was never said and what should have been said. We are live from Broadcasting House. We are in the company of polished policy as well as economic analysts. They'll be joining us to help us dissect the president's speech and of course breathe more life into that speech. Good evening and thank you for joining us. This is the scorecard. We are live from Broadcasting House. My name is O'Brien Kimani. We are in the company of Marie Yambo. She's going to take us through the numbers as they were quoted by the president during that speech of the nation, or the State of the Nation address. Marie Yambo, what numbers was quoted during that day?
Indeed, O'Brien, thank you so much, and thank you back at home for making the time for us. This is the scorecard. My name is Marie Yambo, and just as O'Brien has already alluded to, I'll just be taking you through some of the, things that the president talked about in as far as the State of the Nation address is concerned. And definitely it was broken down to very many areas. He talked about the economy, he talked about the security, law, he talked also about healthcare and, the unity of the country in general. So let me start with the state of economy, O'Brien, where the president did enumerate some of the some of the developments since he came into office. Remember that when he came into office, the fertilizer subsidy was costing 6,500 shillings, but so far it has gone down to 2,500 shillings. So that is one of the areas that he did enumerate. Coffee farmers are now earning more, from 20 shillings to 80 shillings. And the Hustler Fund, remember that was also another area that the president did campaign on and made his promises, true, by launching the Hustler Fund. So far, 36.6 billion shillings has been disbursed, 2.3 billion in savings. In as far as the Hustler Fund is concerned, 50,000 groups have registered so far on the Hustler Fund. 7.5 million repeat borrowers, which means more than Kenyans who have borrowed more than once. 151 million shillings lended to 20,000 groups. In as far as saving culture is concerned, remember the president also talked about the need to encourage, or at least to see a better saving culture among Kenyans, and the NSSF was one of the areas that the president was going to target. And so far he says 6.5 billion shillings is what the NSSF is saving monthly, compared to the 1.4 billion shillings in January. So moving on, again still on the state of the economy, affordable housing is another area that the president did campaign on, and so far 40,792 units are underway across the country. These are housing units which have been launched in some parts of the country. 50,000 previously unemployed Kenyans have been engaged. If you remember very well, the president said the issue is not about Kenyans owning homes, but it was also about creating jobs for young people. 746,795 units is what is in the pipeline so far. Looking at the education sector, 56,750 new teachers have been employed, while 8,200 others have been retrained. And when you talk about retraining, O'Brien, this is to do with the CBC curriculum. So 8,200 of them have been retrained, while the teachers at the training teachers, the teachers training colleges, that is, the uptake has also increased by 300% to 20,456. Trainees. When you look at the healthcare, this also is a very big area for the Kenya Kwanza administration. The Afya Nyumbani program, or what we would call the community health strategy, is something that the president did make promises to, and definitely the Cabinet Secretary for Health, Susan Nakumicha, has been in the forefront, really trying to rally the country to embrace the community health strategy. And if you remember, this was not 10,000, but 100,000 community health promoters well deployed across the country. Remember, the president did launch the 100,000 kits for the community health promoters. So that's an area. So the issue here is about, promoting, if I may call it, preventive and promotive health. For the Kenya Kwanza administration. 20,000 new health workers have also been employed. This has also been a thorny issue for the Ministry of Health and the health sector in general because of the issue of human resources for health. 8,439 contracts have been renewed, while 3,394 medical interns have also been engaged. If you look at the issue of digitization and the economy, definitely the Cabinet Secretary, that is for ICT, the digital economy, Elido Walo, has been, again, on the forefront, trying to, launch, the Wi-Fi hotspots, in the markets. And also, so far, 13,000 government services have been digitized. And this is just to, make it easy for Kenyans to do transactions without having to queue in some of these government offices. And the first ever phone assembly plant in Athi River was also launched. Remember, O'Brien, there was the talk of, phones, the price of phones will come down. So maybe this is one of the ways that the government is targeting to ensure that the assembling of the phones are done within the country to make it affordable for Kenyans. 25,000 Wi-Fi hotspots is what they're targeting at the end of the day in all marketplaces. And this is to encourage e-commerce. And then 1,450 ICT hubs is what they're also targeting, at least for each ward. Now, state of security and the rule of law, enrollment to NYS to double to 40,000 annually. That is according to the president, and definitely it will be all-inclusive. 80,000 of all recruitments to security services will first be given. The first people to be given a chance definitely will be the recruits from the NYS. 6 judges appointed to the court of law in as far as the rule of law is concerned. If you remember, that was a very thorny issue for the previous administration, but the president did make a good his promise, and some of the judges, well done Korir, Agre Mushelule, if you remember, were actually admitted there. 3 billion shillings is what he has promised annually to be added to the judiciary in as far as the budgeting is concerned. And definitely the IG of is now the designated police accounting officer. That was not the case in the previous administration. And definitely when it comes to the issue of banditry, we've seen the cabinet secretary Kithure Kindiki really doing a lot in as far as that is concerned, and the president saying that so far so good, because according to him, human rights have also been upheld during these operations. Talk about international obligations. Kenya is not an island, and so it is part of the international community. The president just emphasizing some of the initiatives that have been taken. KDF troops deployed not only in eastern DRC, but also in Somalia. And currently Kenya, the US, and also the United Kingdom and Saudi Arabia are working to resolve the conflict in Sudan. And it has not been without challenges. COVID-19 is one major challenge that definitely not only Kenya but the world in general did face. The economy was shut down, and so that is one area that definitely is still a challenge because the economy is still recovering from that impact. Global conflicts like the Russia and Ukraine conflict, and recently the Israel and Palestinian conflicts are some of the challenges that the president did enumerate as affecting the economy. Definitely the issue of debt is also there, low agricultural investment, and definitely the prolonged drought are just some of the issues that the president did enumerate as the challenges that the Kenya Kwanza administration is facing so far. So O'Brien, I want to give you a chance to introduce our guests, but before that I would like to remind Kenyans of our question of the day. And the question we're asking you tonight, and hopefully you can be able to get a chance to interact with us on our Facebook, on our Twitter handles, and we'll be able to sample some of your views within, during this program. And the question we're asking you is, did President William Ruto's State of the Nation address your concerns? So we just want to hear from you. Did he address your concerns or not? What was more pertinent for you? Did you hear anything that is of concern for you as far as the State of the Nation address is concerned? So, Brian, it's back to you.
Very good, Mary Yambo. Thank you very much for reminding us that the State of the Nation address is highly regulated and it is anchored in the Constitution of Kenya. Tonight on the show, we just want to look whether the State of the Nation address was within the tenets of the Constitution as outlined in Article 132 of the Constitution and the principles and values as outlined in Article 10 of the Constitution. Tonight on the show, we have 3 prominent Kenyans. We're starting with Mr. Leonard Kafafa. He's a public policy analyst, and he's joining us tonight to help to put some life and some breath into the State of the Nation address. Leonard, thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.
And of course, next to Leonard, we have Dr. Fred Ogola, a regular feature on this show. He's a governance expert, and he's joining us tonight. Thank you very much, Dr. for your time.
Good evening, Obran, and thank you for having me here, and thanks to our viewers for joining us also from home.
Asante sana. And finally, we have Salma Ochieng. She is a devolution and governance expert, youth affirmative action advocate and a lawyer, and she is also joining us tonight to bring in the legal perspective of the State of the Nation address. Salma, thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me. Good evening, Kenyans. We are here to put it to the best perspective that you can understand better.
Very well. Let's first of all put things into perspective. Did we all listen to the State of the Nation address?
Yeah.
Did you listen?
Yes, certainly.
Did you listen?
I did, yes.
You did?
Yes.
Did you listen?
Yes.
All of
did.
it?
Yes.
And so, do you want to commit and confirm that you are here to discuss contents of that speech after listening critically and carefully to that to that speech?
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Fantastic. I want to start with you, Leonard. What was your take on the president's speech?
It captured the essence of Article 132C as set out in the Constitution. Talked about the nation's obligations and followed that up with the national values. So for me, it was a succinct capturing of what is required of the Constitution, what is required of the president as set out in the Constitution. Yeah.
So he played the game within the constitutional parameters.
Yes. You know, State of the Nation address is not an option. As you've rightly pointed out, it is set out in Article 132C, which mandates the president to give a State of the Nation address at least once a year. So that's set out in the Constitution. And in my view, the pertinent issues were captured in his address.
Were captured, all the pertinent issues.
Most of the pertinent issues.
Most of the pertinent, yes. Not all the pertinent. Very good. I'll come back to you so that you can help us understand which are these most and the pertinent issues that you felt were left out.
Okay.
Fred Ogola, what did you make of the president's speech?
Yeah, you see, the president's speech was a victim of a few things, because one is that Kenyans don't understand what is the objective, like you quote the Constitution, on what exactly is the State of the Nation address. And of course, the president did not want to teach them the Constitution, he just went straight to address it. So people could have been thinking that that was the time to announce the price of unga, announce the price of oil. It was about, for them, they think it's a time to lower, not even to announce, to lower. So because this was not the news that president was giving, I was actually watching a directory corner. You know, my hood is directory corner. I live not very far from there. So I could see people waiting for the price mentioned, waiting for numbers to be mentioned. But the numbers was just like, the only figures which were being thrown, which were critical to them, was the issue that we're going to pay the loan. And of course, he was telling them about these figures which he has achieved. But then people are not seeing. So I think that he was a victim of that. So secondly, the expectations were a little bit very high. And the expectations were very high, and that's why you could feel that people on the ground, the common mwananchi, mama mboga, you call them, they fell underwhelmed with it. But nevertheless, if you talk about the fact that he did the address in 1 year, nearly 1 year after he took office, that was compliant. Whether he told us exactly where the economy is in a way we can understand, I think barely. If you ask Kenyans, they'll tell you they are somewhere between where they don't know what's going on, isn't it? And what the president said, because people are, you know, where you're in address the nation, where are Kenyans? And where do you want them to go? Kenyans wanted to hear fuel down, they wanted to hear unga down, sugar down, edible oils down. And when that was not announced, they thought this was addressing the parliament. In fact, I think also the fact that it was happening from parliament.
So, and just to cut you short, I mean, so who was to blame here? Because the president has to play within the confines of the Constitution.
Yes.
And the issues he's supposed to address are very well articulated in Article 132 of the Constitution of Kenya that came into force in 2010. And if you allow me, I'll take you through this article. I'm reading the Constitution of Kenya, Article 132, and I'll read the three areas. One of them is the president shall address the opening of each newly elected parliament. He did that I think sometimes in September 23 or 22, I'm not very clear on that, in 2022. So that was last year. I know that because I was there. And then number two, or the other issue to be addressed, is address a special sitting of Parliament once every year and may address Parliament at any other time. And finally, once every year, one reports in an address to the nation, which he did on last day, on all the measures taken and the progress achieved in the realization of the national values referred to in Article 10. I'll take you to Article 10, so just hang on there. And number two, publish in the Gazette the details of the measures and progress under sub-paragraph 1. That actually happened, and today we saw Parliament debating these reports. And then number three, submit a report for debate to the National Assembly on the progress made in fulfilling the international obligations of the Republic. Today, we had the Speaker of the National Assembly confirm that these documents are well in the House and they are going to be debated in the coming days. Allow me to take you to Article 10 of the Constitution. And this is what it says. It talks about the national values and principles of governance. That is Article 10, 1 and 2 of the Constitution. And according to Article 10, 1, it says, national values and principles of government bind all state organs, state officers, public officers, and all persons whenever any of them applies to interpret the Constitution, B, enact, applies or interpret any law, or C, make and implement public policy decisions. Okay? And so these issues are patriotism, national unity, sharing and devolution of power, the rule of law, democracy, and participation of the people. Number two, human dignity, equity, social justice, inclusiveness, equality, human rights, non-discrimination, protection of the marginalized communities. And C, good governance, integrity, transparency, accountability, and finally, sustainable development. The Constitution, allow me to break your heart, doesn't talk about reduction in the cost of oil, the cost of hunger, fares, or anything like that. Everything is contained in Article 10. And so, allow me to come to you as a constitutional, as an advocate of the High Court, and as a governance and a constitutional expert. Were you convinced when you listened to the President that he lived to the billing of the Constitution?
Thank you so much. First of all, may I take this opportunity to congratulate and thank all the Kenyans who came out in large numbers despite the weather conditions and planted trees during the National Tree Planting Day.
Oh, that was yesterday, yeah?
That was yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
It was fun. I participated in the exercise, and for purposes of climate change action, we call upon all Kenyans. This should not be a one-off thing. It should continue so that we reach the mark of the 15,000 billion trees.
15 billion trees.
15 billion trees that needs to be planted in this country.
The numbers are heavy.
Yes, and we will achieve this.
Yeah.
Going to the State of the National Address. The President is mandated, and as you have read Article 10 of the Constitution, the principles of governance, the right to information. When we talk about transparency, when you look at Article 1, where the President was bestowed, the powers to govern these countries by the Kenyans, he has the mandate every other year to address Parliament and inform Kenyans of what he has been able to do within the span of 1 year. And the address covers all the sectors that the President is dealing with, and all the ministries, and the progress, the challenges, and every other thing. Once that address has been made by the President, it is committed to Parliament. Once it is committed to Parliament, the parliamentarians or the Parliament will have an opportunity to debate and look at the issues that have been addressed, and a report will be tabled immediately. So for me, from where I sit, I believe the President addressed the various issues, the progress of his government, the 1 year scorecard to the Kenyans, and it was to the satisfactory.
It was satisfactory.
Satisfactory.
Yes. Was it 100%? Would you give it 100% a success rate?
Yes, I would, because the President came to power having been informed by what the manifesto, and how this particular manifesto was developed was through what we called the plan. The Kenya Kwanza government, through their manifesto, the plan, when they were doing the campaigns throughout the country, remember they went to each and every county, and each and every the various counties that the Kenya Kwanza government traversed had unique, very unique needs that they told the Kenya Kwanza government they would want implemented should they come into power. When you look at the issues to do with the lower cost of credit facilities, the numbers that your colleague was reading on the Hustler Fund and the uptake and everything, when you look at the farmers in the country, across the country, the government, the fertilizer, and how that has been able to be rolled out across the country. When you look at the healthcare, universal healthcare coverage, so those were some of the pertinent issues that Kenyans came out and said, in this area, we want this. In this area, if this can be done, we will be comfortable. And I believe those who are informed, every other decision that were informed by Kenyans is what informed the operations of this government. So from where I sit, we are implementing exactly what the Kenyans asked for.
Very good. I want to hear this from Kafafa. I mean, when you look at the issues that the president is supposed to address in terms of Article 10, which is the national values and principles of governance. When you listen to that speech, or when you got through that speech, do you feel it was captured? Those two issues were captured in that speech?
I'm not a governance expert. I mean, my colleagues here are better suited to comment on to that effect. But if you ask me off the cuff, I would say yes. I mean, he touched on national values. I mean, there's an aspect of corruption that he touched on. And he acknowledged that indeed corruption did exist, and it was contrary to national values, because if you look at Chapter 6 of the Constitution, the chapter on integrity, it presupposes that every public officer or anyone elected must be elected on the basis of integrity. Integrity is one of the things that is required of any state officer, any public officer, any state official, So he touched on corruption, and that has always been one of the elephants in the room. The thing is, corruption did not start with the Kenya Kwanza government, in as much as he acknowledged that it does exist. It goes way back to the founding fathers, from the first government of Jomo Kenyatta on to that of President Moi, onward to...
Actually, it started even before Kenya became an independent state.
Absolutely. I mean,
the colonial era.
The colonial enterprise was corruption in itself, because it was extractive. I mean, it came in, it engaged in extractive capitalism, which continues to date. Well, the president did touch on that. My colleague Salma will acknowledge that it was never part of the Kenya Kwanza manifesto, routing out corruption. But when it does happen, as indeed it will be a bonus, it will be a plus. Yeah, so yes, to that end, I think he did touch on the national values. Yeah.
And when you say that it was not part of Kenya Kwanza's manifesto to fight corruption, what exactly do you mean?
I think there were more pressing, as Salma has so eloquently taken us through. She says that these views were collected from Kenyans, and they were part of the plan. There's a plan, and from the plan stemmed the manifesto. So these are Kenyans' views, and these are the things that they were articulating at the time, telling the government that the government that they hoped for would address. And these have been captured now in the manifesto. There were more urgent things than fighting corruption at the time. Yeah, as you know, we are in an existential crisis on account of debt, and food is a bit of a crisis for obvious reasons. So those are some of the things that Kenyans wanted to see addressed by the manifesto, and it is happening.
Before we take a break, I want to hear this from Prof. Of course, the president talked about, touched on some of the emerging issues that are affecting Kenyans. He talked about, the cost of living, and the president accepted and appreciated the fact that, yes, indeed, the cost of living in Kenya, is stubbornly high. And he said that some of the reasons why this is happening, we are facing exogenous shocks because of the war in Ukraine, and now the ongoing conflict between Israel and Hamas, which is likely to push up the cost of oil. What else were you expecting the president to say?
Yeah, you see, a father cannot come home and only cry about where he is, he's going to lose his job. He has to assure kids of where we are going. And in fact, you're very right, he pointed them out. But if you look at the purpose of the State of the Nation address is to come up with what are the issues which are affecting the nation and give us measures that is going to put in place to mitigate them. That's actually the main.
And which are these issues?
For example, talk about cost of living, he acknowledged it. But he only told us that...
But the Constitution doesn't talk about the cost of living.
No, I'm sure that that's the purpose.
It talks about national values.
Well, I mean, but there's the issue how you're managing the economy. It's there. The economy is there.
No, it's just not there.
He only talked about the issue of tighten your belt. So that's why I'm trying to say, you are the one who told me he mentioned the issue of cost of living. And he said that he told us about the Russia, the Ukraine war. I also listened to it. He said it, Russia, Ukraine war, exogenous factors. But how he was going to deal with the exogenous factors, what was missing, which was, I think, was critical. As a head of state.
Like now, for example, how would you expect the president to deal with the war between Russia and Ukraine?
You know what's happening, my brother? Exogenous factors could be that it's raining outside there, isn't it? Put on a sweater. Put on gumboots. You cannot say, now let me just be wet in my clothes. Let me give you a comparison because I want to be clear. Uhuru Kenyatta found himself in the same situation in the State of the Nation address. He gave a stimulus package, isn't it? He gave kazi kwa vijana, kazi mtani, isn't it? So what are the measures the president put in place? He acknowledged that the economic times are tough, but he only told us tighten your belt. So me objectively looking at saying when someone tells you tighten your belt only, without telling you how tight and for how long, isn't it? And he just said that things are now getting better, we are making good progress. And I was not convinced it was a good progress because let me tell you what, as an economist, to turn around the economy, you must be objectively knowing where the reality is. If you say we made progress, Kenya shilling is doing 155. As to 1 year ago,
that is not the official exchange rate. By
he talked about the economy. So we are just judging his speech. If you look at his speech, which I even have it here, he mentioned the issue of economy. He talked about Hustler Fund. Hustler Fund is not in the Constitution, isn't it? But he mentioned about it. So we judge his speech. We cannot judge the Constitution because we are talking about the State of the Nation address. And actually, I was one thing I want to state clearly, which I was feeling that the president can improve. We are not here to crucify him. We are here to make him improve. One, the president focused too much on the input variables. I have given 36 billion Hustler Fund. I have given health promoters. I have employed teachers. As an economist, we are concerned about also what's called output variables. If you have employed X number of teachers, are we having more primary school, secondary school, high school transition? If you have said you have brought more X number of health promoters, are we having better access to healthcare for Kenyans? He talks about injecting savings culture, isn't it? Through Hustler Fund. Have we seen a growth in the savings to GDP? Before he became president, it was 12% of GDP, which means Kenyans are borrowers. We are borrowing, we're just borrowing. It's not even the president, not even the state. Individually, we borrow too much. And we are not saving. And I like the fact when he said, let's move to a savings culture so that actually we can cushion the state from too much borrowing. Mm-hmm. But even after injecting this money, Kenyans are still borrowing. So we should be asking ourselves, Brian, after the president told us that he injected some funds to help us save, are you saving? Or we are even eating on Fuliza? We are surviving on Hustler Fund. Are we saving enough? So where do we begin cultural savings? For me, I was thinking that we need to teach this from the family. The Americans succeed from touching from the family, father, son, daughter, and mother, isn't it? It started from there. So for me, the culture of savings could be very critical here when we start from family, because in the Puritan spirit, in the American, they told you, if your father gave you 100 bob, you work for 30 shillings and spend 70 shillings and save 30 bob. What behaviors do we need to reduce? Because people always say the president, you know, in Kenya, everything is the president. Like now, food, president. The president is not supposed to feed you, but the president should create an enabling environment for you to feed.
And so what I'm
the
hearing
president
from
should not
you,
treat you.
what I'm hearing from you,
yes.
Prof, is that you're saying that the president spends so much time telling Kenyans what he has done to make life bearable and to live within the obligations of the Constitution.
Yeah.
But he spent less time explaining what has been the outcome
yes, but that's important.
of his interventions.
Yes, because
very good.
We are more concerned about whether, you know, if you go to you're a doctor, there's what called diagnostic. Then after diagnostic, there's what called recommendation by saying this guy has malaria. Then after malaria, they say we recommend penicillin, if at all that's the case, isn't it? Then is penicillin treating malaria? So if Hustler Fund was supposed to treat the bottom-up thing of creating business at the bottom of the pyramid, isn't it? Has it happened?
Very well.
If it was supposed to increase savings, health promoters, were they supposed to add healthcare variables to us? So we are concerned about outcomes as economists. We are disinterested on input because 36 billion is a lot of money.
I'll be coming back, but I would really want to hear from Salma what the Prof is raising. Did the president spend so much time on the inputs, okay, and forgot to talk about the output or the outcomes of the input? I'll be coming to you because I would want to find out from that. You see, I've always told you that here we discuss intelligent issues. And this is the scorecard. We are live from Broadcasting House. Tonight we threw our focus on the State of the Nation address that was read by President William Ruto on the 9th of November 2023. That was on Thursday last week. We're in the company of great minds. Stay right here, but a well-deserved break is coming up next.
School fees ya msichana imemalizwa.
Lotomoto, may the Almighty God bless you. Keep on doing the right thing.
Cheza Lotomoto, shinda pesa moto. No, the money was there, and I haven't authorized any movements. Get out of this house!
What happened, Arturo? What is going on?
Our son, the successful businessman, has been cheating us all.
Wanted to help him to get the money back, and I sold a part of it to Carlos Molina.
What?
No one will help you because this time you're on your own.
And what do you know?
Person who put up the capital to buy the shares of Arturo was me.
I just heard that there's a fire spreading in the woods. And Danielle is out there in the hut. Everything is burning.
Well, the time check is 11:15, and you're watching the Scorecard live from Broadcasting House. O'Brien Kimani is my name. Tonight, we're discussing the President's State of the Nation address in the company of Salma Ochieng. She's an advocate of the High Court, as well as a Constitution and devolution expert joining us tonight. And we're also in the company of Fred Ogola, Doctor. He's a governance expert, and Leonard Kafafa, who is a public policy expert. We are analyzing the State of the Nation address. Before we went for the break, Prof was very categorical that the president spent so much time talking about what the government has done in the last 14 months, rather than, and he forgot to talk about the outcomes of the government intervention. I want to hear this from Salma. Do you agree with Prof?
Of course, I don't agree with the Prof.
Well, are you saying of course?
Of course, again, I'll say of course I don't agree with the Prof. Mm-hmm. The issues that Kenyans have been, that has become so pertinent for Kenyans is the high cost of living. Mm-hmm. And that is a debate that is, carried across. And we look at the cost of living, and the president was very, this is a government that is very realist, you understand? And the president was very practical and told Kenyans, we appreciate that, here we have the cost of living, and these are the effects that, has contributed to the high cost of living that we are experiencing as a country. Look at the prolonged drought that we just experienced the other day. We are just coming from the effects of COVID-19 that affected most of the businesses that are also trying to, revive from that impact. We are also looking at, the global wars that indirectly or directly affects us as a country, including other nations. So as a country, addressing that situation, how have we been able to put up mitigation measures so that we get solutions? I know the Kenya Kwanza government has focused on production. The Kenya Kwanza administration government has focused on production. And we are looking at agriculture to be the #1 factor in the space of production. Look at, when we talk about the cost of living, who supplies this, the various food commodities that we have? It is the farmers. What have we done to the farmers so that they are comfortable enough, to give us, the surplus that we need? The numbers were read here. We've been able to map out all the farmers across the country. Mm-hmm. Apart from just mapping, we've been able to reduce the high cost of fertilizers that were trading at 7,000 shillings to right now fertilizer 50 kg bag are trading at 2,500 Kenya shillings. What impact does that have then on their production in as far as agriculture is concerned? Right now we are having the rains here with us, and by December, by next year January, we will be harvesting the various food crops that the farmers have been able to produce. It is just in when we passed our finance act in July. July, 1st of July.
Mm.
Yes, since the Kenya Kwanza administration came into power. These are some of the finances that have been able to be distributed across the ministries, across the government, so that things are able to happen, so that these ministries are able to function effectively. So for me, I wouldn't say that the president just came to read, as he says, giving numbers out there. Mm-hmm. The president is mandated to update Kenyans on, the progress of everything. And for me, when we handle the issues of farmers, when we handle the issues of production within a certain time or within a certain period, we will feel the impact of the cost of living coming down.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Allow me, as I let in Kafafa to also comment on this. Something that the president talked about, and I want Prof here to listen carefully. This is what the the president talked about as an output and as an input and an output. This is what he said. We have progressively reduced the cost of fertilizer from 6,500 to 2,500, increased maize acreage under production by an extra 200,000 acres. And as a result of this, we have enhanced maize production by an additional 18 million bags. So the president here is saying that because of reducing the cost of fertilizer by 4,000 shillings, and because of increasing acreage under maize cultivation, we have increased, or we are expecting to increase, maize production by about 18 million bags. Aren't you satisfied?
No,
that the president
output here
that?
Is the cost of unga on the shelf.
That is
it doesn't
output.
matter. Let me tell you here, O'Brien.
Mm-hmm.
I've had some economists sorrowfully telling me we are subsidizing production, we are not subsidizing consumption. There's no such a difference, because we talk about value chain, isn't it? From production until it comes to the shelf. You can if you subsidize production, you should actually lower the cost of that product when it's on the shelf. Because there's nothing like you can say you are subsidizing here, you are not here. If you cannot, what you're looking at, what is the last price when you are buying unga and putting in your mouth?
But let me also ask you this.
According to me, and I don't want to go there, the impact of subsidizing fertilizer only has a possibility of 6% impact on the cost of unga in the end. But when fuel is up, that benefit is ruined totally, because from cultivation, you're using fuel, isn't it? From harvesting, plowing, storage, distribution, sales, you're using fuel. So in the end, the impact is ruined by the fact that fuel has gone up. So for me, my concern is, unga was this, isn't it? Now it is this because of fertilizer. Then I agree. So the intervention of fertilizer is not as effective as lowering the cost of fuel in impacting the cost of the price of unga. Because why are you subsidizing production? You have another thing. The other thing which you have to talk importantly. What are farmers, the price farmers are using when they are selling their maize? Has it gone up because of subsidies? Are they making higher profit? They are not. They are complaining. So subsidizing should either help farmers make higher profit or ensure customers buy at a lower price. Neither of it is working. So Mr. President could have said that oil is affecting the cost of production for the farmer, therefore derailing or taking away all the profit they could have made. Also, farmers are transporting this thing when they are going to take them to sell them to the cereals board. At the same time, it's making the customers buy it more expensively. So, according to me, the intervention of lowering the cost of fuel will be more effective than subsidizing fertilizer, because it has got a small contribution. Remember, fertilizer as an input, there's seed as an input, there's labor as an input, and those inputs are much bigger contributing to the cost of production and cost of consumption than actually fertilizer. That's what I
want to hear this, Kafafa. I mean, Prof is saying that the president should have gone ahead and lower the cost of unga. Is that what you're saying?
I just talk about input, output, and I say his input.
I know. During the campaign, the president promised to bring down the cost of unga to about 100 shillings.
Below 100.
But I mean, we are now dealing with reality. Kenya is a free market. We don't have what we call price controls, and so even the government doesn't have, unless we implement and we enact such a law. Kenya, we do not have a law that gives the government powers to control unga. That is an act that came into force in 2009, right? But for now, we don't have any law that says the government can intervene and set the prices of unga. We know the government tried to come up with low-cost unga. At that time, the president was the Minister for Agriculture. I think it was in 2009. Yeah. It used to be called Kadogo Unga or something like that. Unfortunately, the program went under. Is that the role of the president, really?
Let me circle back to what the Prof has said, and I beg to disagree that the intervention has not worked. Because at the time Kenya Kwanza were coming in as a government, unga was at 250 shillings for a 2 kilogram packet.
Oh,
now,
really?
yes, it was. It hit a peak of 250 shillings. But if you look at the shelf price now, it is in the regions of between 170, depending on where you buy, and 210. So the interventions have worked, and it is evident. I mean, if you go up country, anyone who has planted using the government-provided fertilizer will tell you that this year they have reaped a bumper harvest, and I'll tell you why. Previously, the other fertilizers that were open to abuse by the so-called cartels, the DAP and whatever they were using to plant, only had 2 macronutrients. So what they did then was to leach the soil, leading to poor harvests. The intervention that the president made in bringing the new fertilizer has worked twofold. One, the new fertilizer has 3 macronutrients instead of 2. I think it's NPK, it has nitrogen, it has potassium, and phosphorus or something like that. And what it does is that it has an inbuilt component that corrects the acidity of the soil so that you get bumper harvests. The bumper harvest is obviously reflected in the numbers that your colleague here has read out. An increase of about 18 million bags per annum. Those are numbers. Yeah, those are practical numbers. And yes, farmers are complaining about the price of the bag of maize from the field because they expect it to go to 5,000, 6,000 shillings. But the president is telling them, look, we gave you subsidized fertilizer. Yeah, we moved fertilizer from 6,500 to 2,500. Contrary to what Prof is saying, fertilizer really is a major input when it comes to
it's constituted about 30%.
No, 6%. I beg to differ.
I've done my analysis.
It has
6%.
It's significantly more.
But not even to the final unga, but to packaging.
But let me take us on a slightly different trajectory, but again related to what Prof said. Prof has asked why the president did not subsidize fuel instead of fertilizer. And we say we've been on that path before. Yeah, we've had fuel subsidies. They have not worked. We can't keep doing the same thing year in, year out, expecting different results. Fuel subsidies, as set out by the Jubilee administration, was subject to a lot of abuse. That's why we had fuel shortages last year. What is there in place inside of fuel subsidies is a mechanism that has existed from 1991. The Petroleum Development Levy Fund of 1991, as set out by Parliament, mandates the collection of a fund from every litre of petrol. At the moment, it is 5 shillings and 40 cents for every litre of petrol. That fund works twofold. One, it stabilizes the prices of petroleum, and it also helps to develop petroleum industry infrastructure. This is how stabilization works as opposed to a subsidy. When there's an increase, there's an inordinate rise in the price of fuel, you take money from the stabilization fund, and you apply it to cushion the consumer from that increase. It may not be the entire amount, it may not be the entire increase, maybe a section of it, but gradually you enable the consumer to adjust to the new price so that you avoid the shocks. Prof will tell you, he's an economist, he will tell you that fuel and food are considered non-core inflationary factors. So you try and control them so that you don't cause a lot of inflation on the economy. So that fund was set up in 1991, and then it was subject to abuse. Yeah, it was depleted to the extent that when it was really required at such times as this, there was nothing to show for it. But the fund is there. It is still being collected, 5 shillings and 40 cents for every litre of fuel. And it is gradually, it is applied whenever necessary. And will continue to be. So we don't need a subsidy, because subsidies have been abused.
What we need is to stabilize the price.
What we need is to stabilize the price.
Let me try to solve for Kenya, for my brother here, and even to advise the president on what I think as an economist we need to do. Telling people you lower the price of unga is not correct, and it's not even a good promise to give. Because look, I've looked at the Star, I've looked at the Standard, I've looked at the Daily. All of them farmers are crying that they have been squeezed on the prices and they want the prices to go up. Like for you, if I tell you that like for example, if I tell you this product where you are one of the producers or one of the sellers will go down, it means that everybody in the value chain will make less profit, which means it will become unattractive to do that product. And that's why most advanced countries, they focus on how can I create an income growth rather than creating reduction in prices. Because let me tell you what, go to Switzerland, you'll find ugali will be more expensive, much, much more expensive, but they'll afford it and they'll eat it. How comes for us we are complaining? Because we are being told, and oh Bran, me and you grew up as young boys. How much did you buy bread? Me, I bought it for 5 shillings. Now it's around 80 shillings to 100 shillings, isn't it? Is it bad? It's good, because then everybody is making money in the value chain. But so what's happening is that we should talk about income creation. In fact, I would tell you, you should not be an austerity economist whereby cut. No. In fact, stimulus economics works more than cutting. In fact, if there was a stimulus in this economy, you'll find things will be vibrant. People are saying, sioni pesa kwa mfuko. Why is it that? Because we are having the Kenya Kwanza manifesto is more of austerity measures. Cut this, cut this. You're being here, I'm cutting this. Let me cut that one. When you cut it,
do you agree with
no,
Prof.
that's
Salva?
the manifesto. When you cut, you lower people's buying power and you lower the purchasing power. That's why the purchasing power of the Kenya shilling has dropped by something like 17%. Because now the Kenya shilling's purchasing power is around 83%, and it is easy to calculate. Look at the consumer price index of last year. Look at consumer price index of this year. Subtract the difference. Put 1 over 100 and multiply. It is clear formula. This is an economic formula. It's not like guesswork. It's clear. So the Kenya shilling's buying power is going down because of these things. Cut. Let me give you the opposite. When COVID hit, President Uhuru Kenyatta gave a stimulus in the economy, isn't it? You find that it was more vibrant. People could be able to see money moving. And Kibaki did, they said free primary education. When you say free primary education, if Kenyan households are around, now economic survey is 12.3 million households in Kenya. If there's an average of everyone spending 10,000 shillings a year on school fees, you take 10,000 times 12.3 million households. That is the money which was now circulating in the economy, which you don't have to pay school fees, but now can go to buying clothes, and that's how economy moves. So what I'm trying to say is...
I'm also disagreeing, with the analogy that... the reason why the Kenyan shilling, is losing its ground against major currencies is because of what you're calling the cut by the government.
I also disagree.
But we must also remember, that
not the value
when you
against
look
the
at the
dollar,
balance of
the purchasing
when you
power,
look at the balance
difference.
of payment in Kenya, it has deteriorated in the last 10 years to a point whereby we are buying out of 100 shillings, we buy we spend 90 shillings to buy things from outside Kenya, while we only sell goods worth 9 shillings. And so you end up with a situation whereby your currency is becoming weaker.
Actually,
because
there's a distinction between the strength of the currency and the purchasing power of the currency. These are different things. I'm trying to say now, a Kenya shilling in 2022 and a Kenya shilling in 2023 without importing anything, what does it mean? Does it buy more guavas than it was buying before? Guavas are not imported, they're just within the country. So the fact that the buying power of the Kenya shilling is going down even when you are buying local products, it shows that there is no money moving well in the economy. The issue of the currency exchange has another issue, because if you look at the dollar versus the Kenya shillings, it's to do with the balance of trade. It also has to do with the productivity going down, isn't it? So those are different stories altogether, and you cannot mix them.
From your explanation, and I want to hear this before I get to hear this from Kafafa. Do you agree with Prof that the president never ended up giving people hope that we are doing ABCD, and out of this, things will be better tomorrow?
Thank you so much. Kenyans need to appreciate the practical perspective from where we are doing things. I have talked about, the element of production and how we are curing the high cost of living. I'll move to the element of unemployment, a concern that cuts across again in Kenya. Just recently, the president launched through the universal health care across the country. He rolled out a fully kitted community health workers. Initially, this is a team that were never employed. They used to work on voluntary basis and just on, they never had equipment to go with to the field. And the president across the country ensured that our community health workers have the tools that they need so that they are able to perform their duties well across the community within where they live. Another thing, we also appreciate that the president also ensured that the Nyumba Kumi administrative officers were absorbed into government, and right now they are remunerated, so that then they are able to perform their functions well. Another thing that we must appreciate, the teachers that were absorbed by the government to complement the shortage of teachers that we've been having, addressing again the issues of unemployment.
And I know the president talked about more than 57,000 teachers
were absorbed,
employed in the last 1 year.
Exactly. And look at the rolling out of the housing projects across the country.
The
affordable housing projects across the 47 counties. Look at the impact that has across that on that Mwananchi pale chini. The Mwananchi
of course,
it's
good to say that.
You understand?
The affordable housing have not been rolled out in all the 47 counties, right?
Yes, it is a progressive, but most of these counties have been able, to roll out the project. In the last regime, we invested largely on the TVETs. You understand? And most of the TVETs gave out, graduates who are, expert in this, the Juakali sector. Where are we taking this mass of people who have come from the TVETs? So such projects are the affordable housing project. That is where all these Juakali artisans and every other, will be absorbed, so that they are able now to leverage on, the element of unemployment. So when you tell me that, the president is just speaking from, the blues, and we are not seeing results, that is neither here nor there. I believe this is a president that is giving you, for this, we are giving this. For this, we have been able to do this, and that is exactly what came out, in the presidential address.
Before we do the scorecarding, I want to hear from Kafafa. Yes,
I agree with Prof to the extent that for there to be growth, economic growth, you need stimulus. I agree with Prof. But that is in the best of times. These are not the best of times. We're in palace financial straits. We are up to our neck in debt. In fact, we're just one step away from insolvency. And that said, the government has to do what it needs to do to get us out of the mess that it is in currently at the moment. We do not have money. What I'm basically saying is that we do not have money for stimulus. We are basically trying to stay afloat. We are trying to keep our heads above the water. And I'll give you the numbers. Look at the revenue collection that we did in July this year. I think we collected 151 billion shillings, 156 billion shillings, and then paid our debt, paid out the external debt that Kenya holds at the moment. We paid out 161 billion. It means we paid more than the revenue that we collected. And that has been more or less the trend throughout the year. In fact, numbers say that we are spending about 70% of our tax revenue on debt, contrary to the Constitution. Constitution says we need to allocate at least 30% towards development. So that is where the stimulus would have come from, that 30%. We don't have it. It just isn't there at all. We have to survive. We have to pay down Eurobond next year. This year, I think at the end of this year, we'll have paid about 1.1 trillion. This year, at the end of this year, we'll have paid 1.1 trillion Kenya shillings in debt and debt service. Next year, we have about double that. When we survive next year, when we go through next year, then we can think about the stimulus. But my view is that projects like affordable housing are a very innovative way of still bringing development on the table.
Very good. Just 1 minute.
Yes. 1 minute, because we have to wind up.
So one, to tell you is that even Jesus asked the disciples, feed the people. And then the people said, the disciples said, we don't have food. But Jesus just said fish and bread made other people to bring food they had. So injecting a dose of positivity in an economy makes the economy vibrant. That's why stimulus is not that you are solving everything. You create an aura of positivity. Then secondly, it was unfortunate, and I think the President needs to advise him. When he said we are going to pay Eurobond ahead of time, it is bad financial practice to pay money ahead of time. Cash is king. So you usually tend to ensure cash only moves when it is absolutely necessary. In fact, you'll be told by economists, you can even postpone, isn't it, and delay and pay tactical cash flow management to allow you ensure your economy comes much better. So according to me, as an economist and financial expert, the president could have just paid his debt just on time. Because the financials will charge you the interest anyway. Thank you.
Good. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to that point where we do our scorecarding before we invite Marie Yambo to take us through the viewer threshold.
Yes.
You did?
Yes.
How do you rate it?
I rate it in a scale of 1 to 5.
Yes.
I give it a 2 because
2?
I didn't hear the issue of inclusivity.
2, then that's a fail.
Remember, you're asking a question of compliance, isn't it? If it's compliance, then compliance are always difficult to rate because compliance is 100% or 0. So you comply or not comply. I say it met the threshold. But now I'm looking at the scoring it now, which I don't want to use compliance levels. I would say that I didn't hear the issue of inclusivity because it's actually at bipartisan talks, isn't it? Because we know that inclusive of women, he has not met the 5% in the cabinet and other areas.
So how do you
5% in youth. So I'm giving it a 2 because, in fact, as a head of state, we don't want the bare minimum. We want something more than just the bare minimum.
So you're giving it a 2.
I give it a 2. Yes.
Very good. Kafafa.
On a scale of 1 to 5, I give it a 5. The issues that he didn't touch on will be addressed in subsequent State of the Nation addresses. Remember, the president's mandate is 5 years. He's only done 1 year of 5 years. He has another 4 years.
So he still has about 4 more.
He has 4 more
State of the
years.
Nation address.
Yeah, to fulfill his entire mandate.
Very good.
Yeah.
Salma.
Perfect. A 5, of course, for reasons that...
Why, of course?
As you rightfully put it, this is 1 year scorecard amidst all the challenges that we've mentioned. And I know Kenyans have high expectations, including, Prof here, high expectations, and that is allowed to have those high expectations,
so
because then that is how we function as a government. So the president's scorecard, a 5 out of 5.
5 out of 5.
Yeah.
5 out of 5 from you, and of course 2 out of 5.
Yeah, and it's amazing because if you ask Kenyans whether Kenya is at 5 out of 5, like 100%, Kenyans will sit will
but
have
we
a
are
different
Kenyans
opinion.
and we are not.
Well, aren't we Kenyans? We are not going to open another front of our discussion because time is completely depleted, and we need to hear views from the public. Marie Yambo.
Yes, indeed, O'Brien. I'm just sampling some of the views of Kenyans, and I'm not so sure how we can rate them because they're varied views, mixed feelings, And so the question that we had asked you back at home is, did the President's State of the Nation address your concerns? And so on Twitter, Samson Armstrong says, no please. Bei Zabida Nijumno. So I guess if you ask him to rate, the performance of the State of the Nation address, probably he would not give it as much. Nixon Kiprono says, no, I was expecting him to tell us about sugar, which was to be 70 shillings per kilogram. So he's also not very happy about that. There's someone here called Steve on Facebook. He's saying, well, this is not the Ruto we elected. He's totally different. Bring us the president we elected. So those are some of the views of Kenyans back at home, just reacting to the question that we asked, how would you rate, or did the State of the Nation address your issues? So, O'Brien, that's all I have at this moment. So thank you once again back at home for taking the time to be with us on the scorecard and also interacting with us on our social media platforms. We hope to see you again next time. My name is Marie Yambo.
Well, those are the views of the people watching this program. They are definitely not Marie's views, neither our views, but your views. Well, thank you very much indeed, Marie Yambo, for taking us through the public comment section. Well, what more can we say? Time has never been enough for us to exhaust all the issues, but we always try our best to exhaust some of the key issues. My name is O'Brien Kimani. You have been watching the scorecard. Time now is coming to around 20 past. Actually 25 past. 20 past 11 o'clock. We'll see you again on Thursday. Watch out for more intelligent conversation right here on the scorecard. Until then, do have yourself a good night and a wonderful week ahead of you. Bye for now.